All right, so the file to download for today is one we've worked with before. I don't know where it is, I'm lost. Here we are. Product form start. So we've played with this data before. I forget what it was called before. Probably the file had a different name, but now we've got this product form. We'll go ahead and open it up. We'll make sure this is already a macro-enabled workbook. We've got some macros in it. So make sure you say enable editing and enable macros. All right, so we're starting a topic today called user forms, but let's kind of first build the case for why they're important. First one is this. We've seen kind of a built-in dialog box that if you need to pick up just like one piece of information from the user, you can just put up a dialog box and ask for that information. What's the name of that dialog box or the function that invokes that dialog box? Message box allows you to put up a message and the user can click a button. You can tell which button they clicked on. But I heard it though. What is it? What's the other one? Input box, yeah. So it puts up, you can put up a message, they can type something in and say, okay, and that's great. But what if you need three things? Well, you don't just need one piece, you need three pieces of information. Oh, it'd really be ugly to put up, here's the first piece of information, type it in, enter. Now here's the second, give me the second one, now give me the third one. And what happens if they change their mind halfway through? Your code really gets pretty ugly. So it'd be better if we could make our own input box, our own input box function that says, we are asking for your username, your email address, and your password, all three of those things together. And you give them to me as a set, and you either send them all to me or you cancel and don't send any of them to me. So that's one of the things that we'll use user forms for, is that we can make dialog boxes however complex we want to make them. Now the second thing that will be really useful has to do with editing data. So let's suppose that your task is you've got to update the data about a handful of these products, 20 or 30 of these products. You've got to go through. In fact, one of the students in the last class came to me and said, hey, I'm working on this project for work. They gave us all these records, a bunch of us there. I guess they're student employees, because it's like this long spreadsheet of data, and they have to look up this company and see if the SIC code is correct in their data. And I think they intend for them to do it by hand. Couldn't we somehow do this? So they've got this, so they'd want to do some kind of like a web query for that. But it's the same kind of thing. We've got information about one company, or in this case, one product. This is all like outdoor products that I got from somewhere, that we are going to be editing. And first of all, would Excel let me edit all the information about product number 206 here? Yeah, I could go right here and change this one, and then I could go to the next one, change all these. But Excel really isn't designed well for editing one record at a time. Why not? It's kind of a fundamental disconnect between trying to edit all the information about one of these rows and the way Excel is designed. What is it? Well, you can start typing, or there's some ways you can get it. But all the information I'm interested in here on row 5, I can't even see all the data at once. Well, that's not true, I can't, I have to zoom out. Okay, now I can see all the information that I want to at once. But the point is that I've got all the rest of these rows are totally irrelevant to the task at hand. They're just there distracting me. I've thrown away the vast majority of my screen estate in such a way that it's not useful to me. So we're gonna be able to use user forms to say, no. Pull all the information for editing this record onto one page, and let me just think about one record at a time without being distracted by the other ones that are there. See all the data and don't necessarily see the rest of the data. And so that's where we're headed today. We want to be able to set up a user form so that the user could come here on, say, on row number 5, press Control-Shift-E or something, and bring up that user form and have it show all the data that's on row number 5, and let them edit it. And when they make changes to that data, we'll put it right back out to the worksheet. Not only that, we'll do some extra data validation. Now, can we do data validation right here on the sheet? Yeah. We could say, we got a list of departments, and we could set up a list. It has to be one of these lists. But we can do more complex things if we're using a user form. So let's go ahead and dive in and see what it takes. So I'm just coming to my Visual Basic environment, and I am, I already have one module in here, and I think this is kind of where we left off from an earlier example, or it might have been a different class that we did it from. But so far, the only place we've ever put code that gets saved in the workbook is inside a module. And in fact, the truth is, that's the only place we can put code, is in a module. if we want it to be saved. We can write some code in the immediate window, but it won't be saved as a part of the workbook. But there's more than one kind of module. So far, we've only used here where it says module. That creates what's called a general module. It's just a module that holds sub-procedures and function procedures that we can call from anywhere. There's another kind of module here called a class module. We're not going to use the class module here, but let me just tell you what it is. The class module allows me to define my own objects. So far we've used objects that are built into Excel. We've used the range object, we've used a shape object, we've used a chart object, all those are built in. Well, we could make our own. We could say, you know what, we want to have all these properties, we want to define all these methods with it, we want to be able to create 4 or 5 of these objects and be able to put information in and use them. That's all works great. That's what a class module is for, beyond the scope of this class. But the other place that we can get a module is hiding in here where it says user form. I'm going to go ahead and choose user form, and that is going to bring me open a visual. Maybe I'll zoom in here a little bit. It's going to bring open a visual canvas. Right? It's going to give me some way to define part of the screen to be able to see a window that I can open up and be in control of. But it also has a module built into it. And so I'm just going to double click somewhere on the user form, and I can see, here's a module. This module is a part of the user form. I am going to go ahead and close that because I do want to spend some time talking about, let's see, I'm not quite sure how to close it. Oh, there we go. I want to spend some time talking about the user form first. User form, there we go. I'll close my tools for just now. Okay, so first thing to realize is that my user form is itself an object. It has properties, it has methods. Let's go ahead and play with some of the properties. So I'm going to choose, you probably already have your properties window showing, but if not, choose view properties window. And I guess I don't really want to see the project explorer here. Okay, so here are my properties. These are all the properties that I can change at design time. Now there may be some properties that are only available while the form is running, but there are very few of those. I can't think of any that we'll need for this class. So you can think of that as this is all the properties for this. All right, and these are all alphabetical except for the very first one, name. And name is here at the top because every time you make a form or any other object, we'll see several different kinds of objects today, you want to think about what should you name it. The default name is never a good name. It might be an okay name if you only have one form. This is my user form 1. But I'm going to change this to something more descriptive. I'm going to be editing product data here. So I'm going to call this product. Now, trouble is, there may be several, and you don't know this yet because I haven't shown them to you, but there's going to be other visual objects that I put on here to control my product information. I might want some of those to be called product as well. And plus, when I see the names of these objects, and we're going to have the possibility for like dozens of objects that we've created and named ourselves in our code. When we see the reference in code, we'd like to be able to have some inkling about what kind of object it is. And so instead of just calling it product, I'm going to call it FRM product. So 3 characters in the front that are going to be kind of a standard prefix that let me know, this is a form. So when I see that reference in my code, this is the product form. It's not the product name. It's not the product ID, it's the product form that I'm looking at in my code. Yes, go ahead. Oh yeah, so the question is this putting this 3-character prefix something that I like to do? The answer is yes, but I'm not the only one. I mean, this is pretty well standard throughout VBA. When you look at people's code online, you'll see this a lot. And there's kind of a standard set of prefixes. I'm not so concerned that you use what the standard prefixes are. As long as you're using some kind of prefix, you get in the habit of that so that when you're looking at your code, it's a little bit more readable. Okay, now what happens when I change a property? You change a property, it changes the way the object is or the way the object appears. And so you might be surprised to find out that when I leave that line, it doesn't change what's showing up here. And that's because that's not the name property that's expressing that. What property is making that say user form 1? Yeah, it's a caption property. Just a few down, we have caption right here. So this one I'm going to change to say, I'll call it edit product information. Maybe just info. Edit product info. All right. So objects and properties. Also, these things have methods. Should we take a look at a method of the user form? Let's take a look at a method of the user form. One of the methods of the user form will allow me to show the user form. I call this user form and say .show. So to do that, I'm going to actually come back to my my general module. So let's see, Control R brings up my Project Explorer back, and I'm going to come back and find my general module, I think. Here's module 1. And I've got this stuff at the top from a prior example. Let's go ahead and move that down. And let me make a sub-procedure here. Now, the thing about sub-procedures, or about code that's in a general module, it's generally available. Code that's inside my module for my user form, that's restricted. There are all kinds of other constraints about when I can refer to that code. But code over here in the general module I can use anywhere. So here's where I'm going to make a little sub-procedure that will just open the form. So I'll call this sub open form, open, and I'll call this edit product data. P-R-O-D-U-C-T, data. And now here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to call a method of that form object. What did I name the form? FRM product. And if I've typed it right, as soon as I hit the dot, the editor is going to know, oh, that's a user form. I know what you can do with a user form. Here's your choices. And I'm after the one called show. So there's a method called show. That's it. So that will show my form. Now that I have a general, a sub-procedure and a general module for this, I can assign a shortcut key to this. And I'll want to do that because we're going to be opening and closing this form a lot. And so let's just go ahead and assign a shortcut key. We actually do that from Excel. Come back to Excel. And my developer tab, I'll come to my list of macros. I will select my edit product data macro, one we just edited, one we just created. And I will choose options here. And that'll give you a dialog box that looks pretty similar to when you're recording a macro. And I'll just put a capital E in there. So it'll be for edit the data, will be Control-Shift-E. Maybe I'll put a comment in, doesn't really matter, but edit the product on the current line. The prod cut. And now I'll cancel that. So now I should be able to press Control-Shift-E to invoke that, and it's brought up my user form. Here it is. It's pretty boring right now, and it's pretty small. I think I want to make it bigger, and I want to make it a little more exciting by putting some stuff on it that will actually show the data. But for now, we'll just go ahead and close it, and we can see Control-Shift-E then launches that, and we're ready to close it. All right, so I'll come back to my form, and I do want to make it a little bit bigger, not terribly bigger. Okay, so that's the idea of a user form. It is an object. It has properties, it has methods, and we've played with some of each. Okay, next thing that we're going to do is it's a little bit strange, but I think you'll catch on to it pretty quickly. The reason it's strange is because we have other visual objects that we can put onto the form that allow us to show the data and edit the data and do other kinds of things. And these are collectively called controls. I remember when I first heard they were called controls, I thought that's a really weird name for these objects. Why aren't they just called objects? I don't know. But we call them controls, and I've said it now so many times it still sounds strange. But at least I know what I'm talking about when I say control. I'm talking about a visual object I can put onto a form. Now, you may already have your list of controls showing, but if not, the tool that will invoke that is right up here. It looks like a little hammer crossed with a wrench. To me, I'm always nervous to click on this because that symbol really does look vaguely communist to me. And so I'm going to go ahead and risk it again. I guess we're OK. And it's brought up my toolbox. So this is just, these are the tools that I can put controls. It even says controls right here. It says controls. These are the controls that I can put onto my form. Now, is this all of them? No, not by a long shot. There's lots of other ones. And in the last class, I tried to show the other ones. And everyone else could see them but me. But let's try it again here. If I right-click and choose additional controls, good. Here's other kinds of controls. Now, the ones that we see in the toolbox, these are ones that are built into every copy of Excel. Wherever you go, if you use that control, you know that it's there. To take this workbook to a different machine, you're in good shape. These may only be available because you've got something else installed in here. Let's see if I can come. We probably have something with Adobe Acrobat. Is Adobe here? Oh yeah, Adobe Acrobat DC browser control something. Adobe PDF reader. I can put an Adobe reader right onto this form. I've never done this before. I got to try it. I got to see what happens. I'm just going to select that, say OK, and now I can scroll down, and I guess that's my reader. Acro PDF. You're kidding me. I probably should have tested this before I got here. I just never seen it before. Element not found. That's no good. Okay. So some may work better. Your mileage may vary. Some may work better than this one. Delete Acro PDF. Might as well. It seems broken. Okay. Where did my tools go? I've lost my tools. Come back to my form. There we go. All right. We are only going to be playing with the ones that we have here on this form. Now, I said these are all controls. That's not quite true. The very upper left-hand corner is really just the fact that you have not selected a control. So if I click one and decide, oh, wait, I don't want to have a control selected at all, I can unselect it by clicking on that one. But let's go ahead and look at this first one. This is called a label. And a label is used for displaying static text. When I say static text, I mean the user can't change what's in a label. We can change it through code, but the user can't change it. It's there, they can read it, but they can't change it. So let's go ahead and just kind of bring this on and get it a little bit formatted. So I'll click and drag to bring this in. And that's probably okay. That's probably bigger than it needs to be. I'll make it a little bit smaller maybe. All right. So here I've got this label. And let's look at some of the things we can do to organize this label or to configure it. One of the things I want to do is put a border on it. You'll see that right now it's just like the text. And the truth is there's a background color. You can tell there's something hiding the dots that are on the grid that makes up my form. And if I wanted to get rid of that background color, there's a back style here. Right now it's opaque. I could make it transparent. And now it's just the words and it would show through whatever's on the background. I'm going to leave it opaque because I want the back color property to be just a little bit darker gray than it is right now. So I'll choose the second shade of gray. And that gives it a little bit of a different background color. And I'm going to change my border style from none to single. And now I think the other thing I'll do is change the text alignment of this as well. So text align, I'm going to set that to be center. All right. So now I've got that control configured. Move my controls down here and scroll up. Now right now it says label 1. Oh, I probably should change the name. Anytime I put a control on, I want to think about the name. In this case, I'm going to be showing the product number. So I'll just call this LBL prod no. The product number. I'm not worried about changing the caption in this case because I'm going through code. I'm going to change the caption depending on whatever row is the active row when the user launches this form. So I want to show the actual item in there. So that's the first one, static text. I can kind of style it how I want to, but I set the code, I set what it's displaying either at design time or through code with VBA. All right, let's look at the next one. So the next one is a text box, and this is code that the user can edit. So I'll select that and then drag to draw that in here. So text box allows me to put text there for the user to see, and then the user can change it. And what we'll do here is that when they change it, if they change it, we'll write that data back out to the worksheet when they're done. So I am going to, what do we have here? I've made this, oh, let's give it a name. So it's called text box 1. That's no good. I'll call it TXT. I'll just call it TXT name. It'll be my name of my product. And the main reason that I'm giving these objects names that are descriptive is because I'm going to be seeing these names in my code. And I want to make sure that when I look at that code, it's readable. There's some other properties that we can change the back color and the style to these. Don't go crazy. The tendency is always, oh, I can make the background green. Let's make this in green. Oh, let's make the next one purple. Yeah, just don't. Okay. So one thing that you might want to do is that this kind of chiseled look was really kind of neat in the 1990s when VBA was invented. It's kind of sunken down. I prefer the flat look. And there it is. You can actually change that. So with this selected, there's like, what is it? I forget where it is. Like some kind of 3D effect or special effect. Oh, here it is, special effect. Sunken, no. Raised, no. How about flat? Just make it flat. Probably then want to put a border on it. Border style single. And you know, that's not important. I'm just kind of showing you you've got some styling things that you can do to this particular control. All right, we're going to be talking about several of these other ones, not all of them in this class, but I want to kind of skip now ahead and do this one. This one's called the command button. We might just think of that as a button, but it's called the command button here because there's other kinds of buttons. There's an option button. We think of these as like radio buttons. Sometimes we call them radio buttons, like the radio in your car can only play one station. So the act of selecting one station unselects whatever else was selected. And then we have this one here called a toggle button, which kind of inexplicitly they have updated since it was made in 1995. I'm just tempted to look at that one for a brief moment. Does it really toggle that way? No, it doesn't. It looks like a more modern toggle button that slides back and forth. But this one, don't put this on, but if you click on it, it sticks down. If you click on it again, it comes back up. Someone in the 1990s thought that was a really great idea, and it wasn't. Close this. But the whole point is that's why these are called command buttons, the ones we're interested in, because they're not toggle buttons, they're not option buttons. So I'm going after the command button here. And then this is going to be like to close this form. So I'm going to just kind of bring this down and draw it down here in the bottom right-hand corner. I'll give it a caption. We'll call it CMD. Oh, I'm sorry, not caption. I'm trying to change the name. Here we go. Come on. CMD for command button. OK. This has a caption as well. So instead of command button 1, the caption will just be OK. I think I will leave it kind of with its default formatting. It's kind of still the way buttons look, sometimes gently raised and so forth. Oh, but one more property I do want to change about it is its default property. So there's a property here called default. That seems like a weird thing, like it's a default property because we've talked about there being default properties. What's the default property for a cell? It's the value, right? If you don't specify the value, it'll tell you, oh, you must, I mean, if you don't specify what property you're talking about, you must mean value. That's not what we mean by default property here. What we're saying is that, is this going to be the default button? So if we set the default property to true, now when the user hits enter on this form anywhere, it will be equivalent to clicking on this button. So that'll be pretty good. Yeah, question. Yeah, if I had other command buttons that were another command button that was set to true somewhere, and I set this into true, it would unset the other ones because I can only have one command button set as the default button. Yep. Okay, so far this has felt pretty similar to things that we've talked about in the class. These are objects, they have properties, they have methods. But there's a new characteristic. Now that we're dealing with these visual things, there's a new characteristic that we've got to pay attention to, and that is that these objects also have events. So it's a new idea. Now, a method is some activity that the object knows how to do. A method is something the object knows how to do. In that case, I will tell it to run the method, and it runs the code that's built into it. That's me telling the object to do something. Now, the event is almost like the reverse of that. The event says, oh, the object says something just happened, and it's going to tell me to run some code. Now, I have to write the code for it to run, but when the event happens to the object, I can make code execute in response. So far, all the code we've written, we've had to expressly say, run this code, either by running it from the immediate window or by clicking the run button in the editor. But now, this form can just say, hey, I'm watching. I'm just waiting for something to happen. And when a certain something happens, bam, I'm going to run code. And so let's go ahead and take a look at this in the context of the OK button first. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to double click that OK button, and that will take me to the code that, or take me to the module that's built in here. Now I've already clicked my user form. I'm gonna delete this one. But that just generated this CMD OK click sub procedure. So this is the sub procedure that's going to run when the user clicks the command button CMD OK. That's why I want this to be a good name, because I'm looking at the code. Which button did they click on? Oh, it's the OK button. I can see that. Okay, and so this is a pattern that you should understand, is that when I have a module, a sub procedure that is named the name of an object underscore the name of an event, that is an event sub procedure. It's a sub procedure that will run automatically. I don't have to tell it to run. Some occurrence happening in the form can tell it to run. Now, in all the other modules we've looked at so far, there have been these two drop-down boxes. We've never even touched them. And it's because they're much more interesting here in the user form. Through this one here on the left, when I drop it down, it will show me all my objects. There's the user form itself, and then the other objects I've put on here, CMD OK, TXT name, and my product number, label product number. So I've got my CMD OK selected, but when I have a particular object selected here, in this one on the right, it gives me all the events that this object can respond to. Now you might think, well, what do you need to respond to an object? I mean, a button, just click on it, that's all you need. But there's other things that when it happens, we might want to do things with it. And so we can see, here's click, but we could also respond differently to a double click. Or when the user enters the button, when that button gets the focus, like if you know how you can like tab and make a button active, that's when you enter that button. Or a different code can run when you exit that button. Or even if that button is active and you press a key, or just press the key down, that's an event. Or release the key to come up, that's an event. I don't know what you would do with those, but you could. Oh, I love this one. Mouse move. I'm gonna make it. Okay. Actually, before we get into mouse move, let's go ahead and that's going to be fun. Let's leave it there. But let's go ahead and actually make something happen here. So for my command OK, let's look at one of the methods of the form. So the name of my form is FRM product. It has a method called hide. Hide just says, hey, the form right now is showing on the screen, hide it. But leave it in memory. So if the user typed a bunch of stuff in, if I hide it, that stuff is still typed in. If I show it again, that stuff will still be there. So hide just makes it invisible. Another option that I have is I can completely dump it out of memory altogether. That's not a method of the form. That's actually a different statement right in VBA. That's unload. So unload FRM product. So because it's not a method, if it was a method, it would be object.method, but it's not. It's a statement. So it's a statement then that operates on the form. What does hide do? Hide just makes the form invisible. The corn. Make the form invisible. This one deletes the form from memory. So the difference is if I hide it, whatever the user's typed in the form is still there. I show it again, it's still there. Unload, boom, it completely blows it away. And next time I show it, it's going to have to start from scratch again, completely blank. Go ahead. Oh, you would never put both of these together. Yeah, because if you're going to unload it, no reason to hide it, because believe me, when you dump it out of memory, it's going to become invisible. And yeah, that's right. So I'm just kind of showing you both these. We're going to use unload. So I'm going to comment out hide, but just to kind of show you that is a method of the form, and we're going to unload it. Okay, so now I should be able to run this form. And if I want to, I can run it directly from my development environment. If I'm editing the code for the form, or if I'm actually on the form itself, I can just hit play. And we'll go, oh, there's not a sub-procedure to run, but I can at least show the form. And so now, if the user clicks on that button, it actually will close the form. It's unloading the form out of memory. It's so thrilling. I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, so But I want to really drive home the fact that it's not just that's what the button does. That's what the button does when it receives the click event. Let's come down here and play with the mouse move event for just a minute. And again, this is to help because this is different than anything we've ever done before. They said this code just sits here waiting for its moment, its moment of fame when the event happens to happen that triggers it to happen. That's how we're now writing this code. All right, so I'm going to write a statement here involving some properties you've never seen before. And I want you to look at it and see, can you figure out what's going on? I'll talk about what some of these things do. So, yeah, that's fine. So, name of my object, CMD, OK. Someone tell me what that's going to refer to. Yeah, this is the object, the button object. Dot some property. We haven't seen this one yet, but tell me what do you think it is? Yeah, it's the position. It's where this thing is. It's where the left part of this button appears on the form. So if I make this, larger, if I make this value larger, it'll move where the button is. Okay. Equals. Now, there's a property of a form. Well, let's do this. I probably shouldn't call this form product. That's the name of it, and that's okay. This would work just fine, as we saw that it did. But instead, up here, I'm going to use ME. ME is an alias for the name of the form that's holding the code. The reason we prefer to use ME is that if in the future I get the urge to change the name of this form, I don't want to have to go through all my code and find out every place I called it and change that code too. Instead, I'll just use ME, and that's to say, whatever this form is named, great, that's what we're going to use it. So I'll do the same thing down here. I'm going to change the left property to be ME, this current form, dot, now there's a width property. The width property is how wide the form is. And kind of in today's design, you've got the form, it then has a border on the outside, it's a really thin border, and then it's got the space that you can actually work with on the inside of that border. Well, that is actually called the inside width. So this is like a 2-pixel difference between width and inside width. It used to be that the margins were bigger. All right, well, if I just did that, what would that do? That's going to make the left of the button where? As the whole width of the form. So if my form is 100 units wide and I make the left of the button, let's see, wait, left is going to be, yeah, if I make the left of the button as wide as the form is, that button's going to be sticking off the form. It won't even be visible. So I don't want to do that. I want to multiply it by a random number between 0 and 1. I don't even need the parentheses. Okay, so what is that going to do? It's going to change where the button starts and change the left, where the left of the button is. But where's it going to put it? Go ahead. Yeah, it's a random proportion of the width of the inside width of the form. Buttons normally don't behave this way. I mean, normally, when you put that mouse over the button, you expect the button to stay put so you can click on it, but it doesn't. Right now, right? And the point is, when the object receives the event, even moving 1 pixel on it, it triggers it. Is it possible for me to click this? Actually, I got to move slow. Oh, there it was. My only hope is if it happens to appear right under my mouse and the mouse doesn't move again. We could keep Edna in accounting busy for hours. Oh, now this is a problem. What's the problem here? The left is anywhere between, however, where it starts and the whole width. So I could get it right all the way off the screen, actually. Having a hard time. I would love to be successful here, but we're only going to try it about another 3 seconds. Do 2 more tries. Got it, success. Okay. So let's correct a couple things about this, and let's play this a little bit more because it's so much fun. So I'm going to reduce this so that the whole portion I'm working with is not the whole inside width, it's the width minus the width of my button. So minus CMD OK dot width. That'll keep it from going off. At least now the button will stay completely visible. But I'm just not satisfied with it moving just horizontally. Let's also change the top. I'm sure that might look like an equal sign there. It's probably just a little dust on the screen. Let me blow that off for you. Make it a little bit clearer that that's just a minus. And so we'll change the inside height minus the height. H-E-I-G-H-T. So now it's going to be really tough to catch this now, because now it's not just shifting horizontally, it's shifting vertically as well. Oh, hey, let's do one more thing, because Edna will love us for this. Let's say CMD OK dot width equals what it used to be minus 2. What is that going to do? Yeah, every time this code gets invoked, that button's get a little bit smaller. It will be imperceptible at first, because I will be so shocked by the fact that it moved, I won't notice. And then right about now, I'm going to go, is that button getting? It is. It's less likely that I'm going to catch it by the moment. Oh no. About this time, Edna starts to get really nervous. She's going, I gotta, okay, this is gonna be it. This is my, no, now maybe. Ah! Oh no, there it is. I got one more shot. No, it's gone. Oh, can I close the form now? I could, because that X up there, but how else could I close it? Enter, yeah, it's still the default button, even though it's invisible. Enter will still trigger that code. All right, let's complete this example with one more thing that just puts the cherry on the top. The icing on the cake. It's the cherry on the icing on the cake. I'll write this one and see if you can figure it out. If day of now equals, is equal to 1 and month of now is equal to 4. Then do this. What does that do? It only does this on April Fool's Day. Yeah, so this button now, it's going to behave just like normal, 364 days out of the year. And then on April 1st, it's going to dance around like crazy. So you can't get to it. Now, it's kind of a little bit strange, because if I think about what's happening, every single time the mouse moves even 1 pixel over that button, this code is still running, right? What's it doing? Is it April Fool's Day? No. Is it April Fool's Day? No. Is it April Fool's Day? No. It's November, give it a rest. Is it April Fool's Day? No. It's still doing that, but it all happens so fast, it's just not even noticeable, okay? Now, the whole reason I had to put the April Fool's Day thing on there is that I used to leave it that way, just thinking I'll remember to hit enter, but I don't. I keep trying to click on it, and the class laughs, and I get embarrassed because I keep trying to click on a button I can't click on. All right, but again, the point here, and what I really want you to grasp from this, is that in the world of forms, I always have to think object and event. I'm going to make some code execute. What object am I interested in, and what event can I respond to? So now our next step is to actually read the data. When we open this thing, we want to read the data from the worksheet and start to populate the user form. And so talk to me in terms of object and event. I'll give you the object. The object's going to be the user form itself. So I'll select the user form here. And now, I haven't taught you this, and I'd be shocked if any of you have done the reading. Maybe some of you have. I wouldn't have. But here's the list of events. I know they're kind of hard to see from there. Maybe you can see it on your own screen. What event do you think it's going to be? Just kind of look at the names and think about it. It's part of what, as you become, a developer, part of what you're going to want to do is say, let me just kind of snoop around. Snoop around and then try some things. You could Google it. That's boring. So what would it be? You're kind of looking at these. What do you see? Yeah, initialize is going to be the one. Let me go ahead and select it. So initialize. Where did you go? Initialize. There you go. Initialize. And when I chose user form, it thought, you must mean when you click on the user form. No, I never want to run code when I click on the user form, unless it's April 1st. Okay, so now when the user form receives the initialize event. Now, the form can be in three different time zones. It can be in the setting where it is just a part of the workbook, but it's not showing on the screen, it's not loaded into memory, it's just saved as a part of the workbook. That's one place that it can be. The second place it can be loaded into memory, but not shown. It's hidden. And the third place it can be loaded into memory and visible. So those are the three places a form can be. Completely just out of memory, just saved as a part of the workbook. 2, in memory but invisible. And 3, in memory and visible. Can it be visible and not be in memory? No, it's got to be in memory to be able to show it. And so those are the three things. The initialize event happens when the form first comes into memory. Then when I show it, and when we're starting off by saying show, these two things happen in very quick succession. It would be possible to load the form without showing it, and then later to show it. We almost never do that. It's possible. And so when our code over here in module 1 says, hey, form.show, it's going to read it off the disk and read it out of the workbook, and then it's going to show it. And when it reads it off the disk, that's when this code will execute. Now, when it goes from being in memory but not visible to being visible, there's another event. That event is called activate. So if I show it, it'll initialize, and it'll initialize first, and then it will activate. It'll trigger the activate code. And then let's say I hide it without unloading it. If I hide it, it comes out of visible, but still loaded into memory. Does initialize happen again? No, still in memory. If I show it again, it comes back to visible, still in memory. It'll trigger activate. Hide it, show it again, activate. Hide it, show again, activate. But initialize only happens the first time it gets read up. Now, in our case, when we close it, we're going to unload it. So when we close, we're taking it off the screen and out of memory, back down to just being as a part of the workbook. So the next time we show it, it will trigger the activate again. The other thing that kind of a distinction between activate and initialize is that we won't see how to do it in this class, but it's possible to have two forms up at the same time. And you can kind of go back and forth between them. And in that case, even though they're still both visible, each time one becomes active, it triggers the activate. Activate, 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 activate. Initialize only when they first get read into memory. So they will both have a separate initialize that happens, but they can just get activated back and forth. So activate is not going invisible or becoming visible, it's becoming active. And if you have more than one form, it can be active or not active. Okay, so now what are we going to do? Whew. Now, as it turns out, we're going to have several sub-procedures here. We're going to have one that's putting the data onto the form. We're going to have one that's reading the data off of the form. We might have one that's doing some data validation in a separate place. And we're going to want to be taking a look at which row we're working with from several different places. And so if that's the case, I either have to continually go and ask what the active row is, what row we're on, or I need to remember somehow the row by putting the row that we're interested in a variable. Let's do that. So where should we declare the variable? We're going to need it accessible from at least two different sub-procedures. Should we declare it inside a form initialize so it gets declared right when we start, or somewhere else? This goes to something we talked about a week ago today. Oh, Professor Allen, that was a week ago. You're kidding. You don't think we could possibly remember that? Yeah? That's right. We want to make it a module level variable. So we're going to declare it at the very top of the module. So not inside of any sub-procedure. So we'll put it up here. So let me just dim row as an integer. And so now when I initialize here, I'm going to say row is equal to, what should it be? Which row do we want to be editing? Yeah, whatever row the active cell is on. Active cell.row. And now we're going to use that to read some data off of the worksheet. Now, this worksheet has a name. It's called data. It has a code name, data. It says products on the tab, but the code name is actually data. So we're going to refer to it directly like that. Data dot cells, row number row, column number. Let's see, we're after the ID. That's in column number 1. Dot value. Oops, I did the wrong half of this first. It's okay. We got to do that part anyway. So that's the value that we're reading off. So that's going to be on the right hand of our assignment statement. And where are we going to write that to? We'll have something over here. Where are we going to put it? This is our product ID. We could put it into the title of the form. That's a pretty good place to put it. But I already have something else in mind for it, and we made a control for it. Right? We made a control called LBL prod no. So I'm going to change one of the properties of that object, LBL, PRODNO, name of the object, dot caption. So we're going to change the caption property of that label called LBL prod no. And what is it going to be? Whatever is in column 1 of the row that had the active cell. Oh, I'm so excited to see if it works. Let me go ahead and come back to my code. Now, remember, Control-Shift-E will invoke this for me. I'm going to come here right onto line 14. That's a really great looking product ID. Control-Shift-E. Oh, look at that. That's so exciting. I'm going to zoom in. So it has brought up, I see them both? Yeah. It's opened the user form and it has put the product number right here, right there into that object. Now, user can edit this, double click, can't even highlight, which is kind of unfortunate. I think they should be able to highlight it so they can copy if they want. They can't. It's just there, static text. We'll do the same thing for the text box, which is in column, where's the name? Is it column F? I think it's in column F. Let me say okay. Let me zoom out. And so again, when we initialize, and actually I think before we do that, this process of putting the data onto the form is going to be so involved that I think I want it in its own sub-procedure. So let's do this. I'm going to cut this line out. And here I'm going to put, just call it show data. And I'll come to the very top and I'll make my show data sub-procedure here. Sub, show data. And it is going to do that same thing. So we really haven't changed anything yet. We used to have a line here that was in my initialize, and now we've put it in its own sub-procedure and we're calling it from initialize. Right? Same, logically is all the same. I just kind of want my show data here where I can, because this is going to get pretty big and pretty complicated. Now I want to do something similar, but instead of the caption of the label, it's going to be txt name dot caption. Only there is no caption property, I'm sad to say. CAP, no caption. Oh, what is it going to be? Well, it turns out there's two that I could use. I can either use text, and it used to be in the early days, that's all there was. There was no value. It was the text property. But we use value so much more, they said, all right, we'll let you use value here as well. Whoops, not visible. VALUE. And that's going to be not column 1, it's going to be column A, B, C, D, E, F, column 6. Or I can just put the letter here for column F. So now that I've told it, go ahead and read the value from the current row in column F and write it to the text box, I should be able to see not only that ID number, but it should say Canada Goose Floater. Canada Goose Floater, Control-Shift-E. And there I've got it. Canada Goose Floater is there. I could come now here, and this is editable. I can delete this off. And I can call this the Mexico Duck Sinker. Now, this is great. When I click OK, it's going to do absolutely nothing. Why didn't that change? I haven't done anything to tell it to change yet. I've just told it to, when the form opens, read the thing and put it up there. All right, but before we get to actually changing that value, which is coming up next, let's look at another kind of a problem here. Let me come here to column C. So I'm on C1 and press Control-Shift-E. Uh-oh. What is this? What have I done? What am I getting ready to edit? I'm editing the headings. Listen, I don't want Edna from accounting ever editing the headings. Well, I'm going to let her edit the data. But she's not going to edit the headings here. And I've made it so she can edit the headings. So what am I going to do? How do I solve that? I don't want it ever to show the heading. What should I do? Any thoughts? Okay, if statement, and where should we put it? We got to think in terms of object and event. When do we want to look at this and say, ooh, slow down? Say it again. Okay, so we could, right up here at show data, we could say, yeah, it's not a bad place to do it. I dislike it here because here I just want to be showing the data. I want to be manipulating my row here. So what's the other option? Initialize, yeah, here I'm setting the row. And what might be a clean place to do it is to come here and say, you know what? I've set the row. I'll just say if the row is equal to 1, then row is equal to 2. If you're on the heading and you say edit, we'll let you edit. That's fine, but you're not editing the heading. We'll just do the closest one is the first row. Or even better, let's make it a random number between, we'll just pick one. Now we'll leave it at 2. So now if I'm here on the heading Control-Shift-E, it's gone right down to row 1. So now we're in good shape. That would have worked equally well if I would put it right up here. If I just said if row equals 1, then row equals 2, could have worked just here as well. I just, for kind of splitting it up, I like it better here where I'm first giving it the row, I'm checking to see if it's valid. Likewise, if we're way down past the data and it's blank, I could have some other text here that says, oh, you're way down here, then go up until you find some data. It's a little more complicated, but go up until you find some data and set the row to that. We could do that. We won't take the time to do that here. Question?
Is there not a way to prevent, for example, insert above row 1?
Oh, Edna's getting creative, right? So she's darn it, I'm going to edit that row. Control plus, Control-Shift-E. Oh, she got me. Yeah, in fact, it's one of the things that this approach to editing data could be really good for. Now, I don't often do this, so I'm not that familiar with it. But we could lock this whole worksheet. Anyone know how to lock the whole worksheet? I bet some of you do. Is it on data? How do I lock the worksheet? Anyone know? It's under review. Protect sheet. I don't know how to do that, but protect sheet. So you can't edit this at all. Could you still open the form? Sure. Could we still read the data off of the worksheet, put it onto the form? Sure. Could they open the data, or could they edit the data on the form? Sure. Could we write it back to the worksheet? No. But could we have code that says, unlock the sheet, write it, lock the sheet? Yeah. So we could defeat Edna. She's got evil designs. She's trying to get back at me for the April Fool's prank that I played on her. She's going after all this stuff. So yeah, and that's actually, it's one of the things, because there's not a whole lot of protection for data on the worksheet. Right? It's not like a database where we could say only a certain kind of data is allowed to go in here, and we're only allowed to edit it under certain permissions. But we could do something like that and have, and it doesn't change us from malicious changes, but it would change us from accidental changes. Have you ever done that? Accidentally changed data in your worksheet and didn't realize it and saved it and then it was gone? Yeah, it hasn't happened to me very often, but yeah, you can prevent that from happening. Okay. All right, where are we? So we have actually only one more thing. There's actually 2 more controls I wanted to cover today. I don't know what happened in the last class. We didn't get there. So we'll do this, we'll get caught up to where that class is. We got to stay together since we're using the same video for both classes. But then if we have a few more minutes, we either quit early or we could explore some of this locking and unlocking stuff, even though I'd probably be stumbling through it. All right, so the other control that I want to look at today is this next one right here called the combo box. Now, it's called the combo box because it's a combination of a text box, which you've already seen, and a list box, which we haven't seen yet. Truth is, we should probably do the list box first so you get the feeling, oh, it's a combo. It's got characteristics of both. But we're going to do combo box next. So I'm going to select my combo box control, and I'll just go drag this right underneath my list of names. Or my name text box. Now, anytime I put a control on my form, I want to think about the name. So combo box 1, bad name. I'll call it CBO for combo. And this is going to be the category. So we've got dozens of categories here. So I'd like to be able to make this. Oh, before we do this, I want to get to where we're saving the data. I'm jumping ahead of myself. So we'll come back to this in a second, but first let's get to where we're saving this. We're saving the data here. So let me come into my OK button. And I think what I'm going to do here, I've got show data. I'm going to make a sister called save data. Okay, well, right now it's actually doing the wrong thing. It's reading the data from the worksheet and putting it up here. So we don't have to worry about saving the value for the ID, the product ID. We don't want them touching the product ID. So they can't change it anyway. So it wouldn't be so bad to actually write it back out because they can't change it. But what if through some kind of black magic they figured out how to change it? I don't even want to deal with it. So I'm just going to get rid of the line that deals with that. So now we just have the analogous line that reads the data off of the worksheet, puts it onto the form. What do I have to do to modify this so that it will save the data? Right now, it's still reading data from the worksheet, putting it to the form. What do we do? Yeah, just switch it. Right? Because right now we're saying, look at whatever's on the worksheet, write it into whatever's in the form. What we're going to say now is look at whatever's in the form, write it to whatever's in the worksheet. We're just reversing that line. Now, it still won't save it because we haven't called save data. But let's come down here and click OK. Well, what would happen if we put it right here? Is it going to save the data? Now the user clicks OK, and we're telling it to call the data in the OK procedure. Is it going to do it? No, because before I got there, I said unload the form. What happens when I unload the form? Poof, it's gone. All that code that it was still hoping to do just dumped out of memory. So we do have to put that before the unload me. I'll put it right here at the top. Save the data. That should work now. We should be able to save that data. Let's give it a shot. I'll come over here. I'm on my Canada Goose floater. It's a great thing. I don't know what that is. Seems like a floater is something you want to get rid of rather than buy. Canada Goose sinker. And now we've edited the data right here. Wrote it right back out. Very nice. Oh, you know what? It's a little bit unfortunate now. What happens, Control-Shift-E, I come and delete the whole thing. Do I want anybody deleting the whole product name? I'm thinking if you delete that whole product name, you didn't really mean to delete it, but it's gone. No problem. I'll hit Control-Z to undo. Control-Z. Oh, I was kind of surprised that worked at all. Apparently it is no problem. Did it work for you, Control-Z? Yeah, I'm not sure why this worked. It used to be that anytime you ran any VBA code, you lost your complete undo history, whatever it was, gone. So I'm shocked by that. So I don't know why that worked for me and not for you over there, but okay, but still, I don't want them to delete the whole thing. You know, it was supposed to be dramatic, but now it's just kind of ho-hum. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put some data validation right here onto this OK button. So before we say save data, or data, however you say it, I'm going to put in here an if statement. If, and I'm going to look at my text box, txt. txt name dot value, if that is equal to a 0-length string, or another way to say it is if the length of the value is equal to 0, it's the same thing, so it's a 0-length string or there's no characters, then we want to do something. What do we want to do? Put up a message box. Message box that says product name required. We'll put a comma here and say this is critical. That'll give it a nice little critical sound and put an icon on it. And oh, users love when you do this. User error. We'll put that in the title bar of that form. And then if we get into this, we're going to show that message box. It's going to pause the code until the user clicks OK. Then I don't want to get to save data. I don't want to get to unload me either. What do I want to do? Exit sub, beautiful. Exit sub. So if I made it here, I give the user an appropriate error, I give them a message, let them know what's going on here, and I am not closing this data. I'm not saving the data because it's no good. I'm not closing the workbook, that'd be even worse, right? I edited all this stuff, it didn't pass one validation, and gone. Have you been on web pages like that? Oh, it's terrible. Sorry, your credit card number was wrong, start again. Everything. We're not gonna do that, okay. So let's give it a shot. So now let me go ahead and, oh, I do have my syncer came back in there. That's nice. Control-Shift-E. I'm going to delete the whole thing. I'm going to say OK. Not so fast. User error. Product name required. Say OK. Maybe we'll do this a few times. It'll give me a break. No. I'll put anything I want here. We'll say OK. And now that's there. I wonder if Control-Z. Yeah, Control-Z won't undo it all together. I'm not sure why it did the one when it completely blanked it out. That's shocking. Okay. All right, now let's take a look at the combo box. Question? That's a stretch. A question here, go ahead. Oh, yeah, because we're checking the length of it. You're thinking, hey, space, you're saying space should not be allowed either. Okay, so let's just do this. Let me just trim this, and that'll get rid of leading and trailing spaces, and then check the length of the expression. And then someone will go, oh, well, I'll go put a tab in there. Ah, you can't put a tab in because when you hit tab, it moves you to a different place. So I'll go put a tab in Notepad and I'll copy and paste the tab and put it in there. So you could put a tab in there, you know. So we could do that too. We could make something more sophisticated that says if it's anything less than 33, character number 33, that's a space. Anything less than that's non-visual. We can say you're not allowed to do that. You know, I don't know if Ed is smart enough to try to paste a tab in there, but you know, we could go back and forth on this. She's not going to win at the end. We're going to, okay. Okay, but anyway, now that should at least Control-Shift-E. That should prevent a space and not let the space go through. Product name is required. Okay. On to the combo box. Maybe we won't have time left after all. That's pretty bad for me to tease you, like we might get out early and then not deliver. So this is the combo box changing. We don't want that. We're just trying to show the information. And so here we're doing the product ID, here we're doing the name. Let's go ahead and do the combo box here. I'll put a comment for this one because this is going to be a little more complicated. The reason this is more complicated is that I've got two things. I've got to show the value here, but I also have to populate this list of the values they can choose from. Fortunately, in a prior example, we had code that actually built the lists. And so category is here in column F. So let's just kind of quickly, and this is a loop that we've done several times in our short VBA lives so far. But let's just go ahead and knock this in. Dim R as a long integer. We'll start R off equal to 2. We're going to do until, and what's the name of the sheet? The sheet actually has a code name of lists. List, L-I-S-T-S dot cells, row number R, column number happens to also be F, dot value is equal to a 0-length string, U-N-T-I-L. I told you I misspell that often. Here we'll put loop, we'll put a do events in here, just in case something goes terribly wrong. We'll increment R. Okay, so now that's a loop that is just going to read across the contiguous data starting in cell F1, F2 of the lists worksheet. And now we're going to tell it, put the values into that combo box, into the list of the combo box. Here's how we do it. Name of the combo box, there's a method for this. CBO category. By the way, if I couldn't remember what it was called, I could type me, the name of the form, dot, and now as I start typing CBO, it'll go, oh, here's all your things that start with CBO. Oh yeah, it's called category. But that CBO is, the me on the front is extraneous. It's okay to have it there. Dot add item, and then I just want to add whatever is in that column in the list. Now notice there's no equal sign here. This is not a property. We're not saying the add item property is equal to one of those cells. We are saying look at that cell and add that into the list, the method. So this is a value that we're sending to the parameter that add item is expecting. All right, so now if I come back to my product sheet, hit Control-Shift-E, that list should have all the values in it. Those are all of our categories. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. We'll change that to loading. We'll say OK. And it doesn't change it at all. Why not? The only line I have for changing is the name. I've got to go make an analogous one for the, oh, before I do that, I've got to get this thing to start off with the right value. It's blank. It should start off saying Flambeau. Flambeau? Well, that's the manufacturer. It's not, what is it? It should say what? I don't know what the category is here. It should say waterfowl. That's what I'm after. All right, so let's come back to our show data. After we put the list in there, and this is actually going to be almost exactly the same as the text box because it's really a text box feature that we're doing. We are saying name of our combo box, CBO category, dot value is equal to whatever is in column B. And it should come as no surprise that writing this back out is the flip side of that as well. So I'm just going to reverse these two columns again. It's not always so simple as just reversing the two things that we use to write it. But now we're saying here, after we've loaded this up, set the value to be whatever that value is. It'll be one of the items that's in it because that's where the list came from in the first place. And then whenever we click Save Data, it's going to write this, read it off of the category, and then put it back out to that sheet. Ooh, should I put something in my data validation down here to, let's see, where's my data validation? To check to see if they've got a valid category? No, because well, I was gonna say they can't pick it wrong, but unless we tell it, that combo box to limit its options to the list, they could type something else in. So we would either want to change that to check for it or disable it. Let's go ahead and run it where it is, and then maybe that'll be the last thing we do today. So Control-Shift-E, I should be able to change this to Turkey and call it Tom. And now it's starting off with the right value. It's saving the value out, starts off with Tom Turkey. But we could change this, we can type this in to something unintelligible. And that still writes out. So we either want to check to see what's in the list, or we just want to say, no, don't allow them to choose anything else. And I forget where this is, but there's some place where we tell it to limit to the list. Combo box is only allowed to take a value that's in the list. It's here somewhere. Behavior. I don't think it's enter field behavior. What is it? Where is it? It's in behavior, enter field. Anyone find it? Position, data. Say that again? Oh, match required, maybe so. That doesn't sound familiar to me. Match required. Let's give that a shot. Control-Shift-E. Invalid property value. Yeah, won't let me put that one in there. Excellent. Nice thing here, I can start typing and it will bring in my waterfowl and then we'll say okay and we're gorgeous. Okay, so that was the match required property. I wonder where limit to list came from. Must be a different environment. Questions? Okay, we got one more day on forms and there will be a project on this content as well. So one to kind of pay attention to. All right, folks, thanks for coming. Looks like we're done 3 minutes early. Hallelujah. Class dismissed.